of his concerns. His bindings forced his naked body into a human X shape, the vulnerability of which became apparent to him early on. When rodents came calling, they did so via every soft, exposed root giving off heat, and the horrific nature of their initial penetrations had left him begging for swift release. A number of days and nights had passed since he had been strung up this way. Were it not for the sultry weather, his exposure might already have cost him his life. Not a moment in recent memory had slipped by without him longing to welcome the cold embrace of death. During rare moments of lucidity, he assessed his deterioration and believed himself to be clinging to life by the faintest of threads. And the tortuous existence he had experienced was enough to break him psychologically and physically, but not spiritually. Quite the opposite, in fact. He was not a man of God, yet still he prayed for blissful release, the severing of that mortal strand currently preventing him from moving into the great unknown. How he had not succumbed to his multiple wounds was a mystery he had no inclination to solve. How he had withstood it mentally was incomprehensible to him. Torture, he now knew with absolute certainty, broke the psyche along with the mind and body, overcoming the most basic human will to survive. Yet his was by no means the classic method of destroying a person's resolve, because for many, the end could be bought with a confession, with information. For him, there was no price to pay, because so far none had been sought. For him the nightmare continued unabated, a ritual punishment meting out unimaginable cruelty upon him. His left eye hung heavy in its socket, compressed by the weight of the scab-encrusted lid. It oozed, stung like paper cuts, and itched so badly he wanted to scratch at it until it was as raw as the lid had been. The scratches and bite marks that had torn into the cornea now hampered his vision through the gelatinous leakage. Only it still saw things. Terrible things. Things approaching noisily through the undergrowth, in a swarm of matted hair and grim determination, grey and vague in shape, but seen for all that. When he snapped his eyes shut, his mind continued to recreate the images for him, and the horror of imagination was almost always worse than the reality, resulting in him opening it back up again. But what it saw terrified him. Every single time. So much so it practically came as a relief when his tormentor happened to return before the hungry scavengers had scampered up his legs in search of any nourishment unleashed by the previous visit. The sound of an approach lacking stealth in dense woodland caused the creatures to scatter in all directions, for which he was so thankful it forced a fresh welling of scalding hot tears to pulse from his eye. The bloody pulp of socket no longer encasing his right eye seemed to weep in sympathy. Yet all it did was dribble pus onto his cheek. It did not matter if pain was approaching in the form of a demented mind and a sharpened blade, because at least this time he would not feel the warm breath of vermin, made fetid by the rotting particles of his own tissue caught between their